That's been brought up as a comparison quite often, actually, even in just the last few days. And I think it kind of falls in line with what I said at the town hall about once you've picked a course, you need to stick with it, or it's just going to make everything worse when you decide to pull back.
Everybody
No,
can
it
hear you
is.
all now, by the way. I'm here. Can you hear me?
Oh,
Hello.
hi.
Hi there.
And how long have they been listening to us?
Probably about 10 seconds. So it's been
Oh,
fun.
okay.
Hello,
Whew.
everyone. Welcome to the stream. This is Sam McTennis, and we've got Siden. We've got myself today. We've got everybody that's in the chat. It looks like 16 so far, but that might be inaccurate on my end. But yeah, welcome everybody. One thing that we talked about leading up to this is maybe talk about a few non-important things, gives people some time to come in still. But I don't know, it's kind of important. How was your all's week? How was everybody's week? How are we doing? It's been a
Has it
wild
really
one.
been a week?
Yeah. How are you guys doing?
Yeah.
Um, I mean, doing pretty good. It was a fairly normal work week for me. Um, so yeah, it was a good week.
Yeah, you took a bit of a break from the game this week, didn't you?
Yes, I just needed a little bit of a recharge, so I took a 5-ish day break just to recharge a little bit. I left plenty of notes though, so it shouldn't have come as a surprise to anyone who's in the organizations of which I'm a part. Um, but yeah, just a little bit of a recharge.
Cool. Did it help?
Yeah, it definitely helped. I recharged, I did some other stuff, and I am now working through the small pile of things that have been awaiting me.
It's good to hear, man. We're glad you're back and that you're feeling better. So what about you, Sam? How was your week? I mean, you
Well,
can obviously it was crazy, but like anything out
I,
of the ordinary?
I could definitely say it hasn't been like a normal work week has looked like for me for the last few years, but yeah, loads of catching up, lots of learning, just getting straight in really and familiarizing myself with everything. Well, at least a little bit of everything to start off with.
Yeah.
It's been great, actually. I've had a really good time. I'm having a lot of fun.
Yeah. So yeah, we could start. We can get into it if you guys are ready. Um, it's not like it's a dire situation, but like I know that we've talked about all week the fact that this is going to be about getting to know you and less about the Atolia questions because the town hall went real well last night. I'm sure the one tomorrow will go real well. I honestly did not expect you to go for like 5 hours. That was pretty intense. Um, but yeah, like I'd like to start out by like what how did you come to Iron Realms games originally, and like what has your journey been like?
Okay, so about what year are we in? 20, so about 15 years ago, I was looking for a game online to play. I was bored with whatever I was playing single player at the time, and came across Kingdom of Loathing, whether anyone remembers that, the stick figure game.
Yeah,
I
Uh,
remember that.
and
yeah,
somehow from there found my way to Avalon, which is the forerunner almost to Achaea, or at least inspired the initial founding of Achaea, I think, to an extent. Played there for several years. Some friends then told me about Atolia. That was about 2010, and I played Atolia for 3 years on and off. So that's where I kind of first started getting into IRE. I hadn't really known anything about the games at all at that point. Dabbled then in Achaea a bit over those years. But in 2014, I started working as a game dev for Avalon, my original game.
okay,
Then 3 years later, saw that there was a job in Achaea as head builder. Applied, got the job, spent 4.5 years doing ridiculous things, and now I'm here. That's the summarized version.
it's an interesting version. Yeah, so obviously we want to know more about you, like where I know you've said where you're from and stuff, but just like for the people that haven't heard, like where are you from, like what do you like to do outside of these games, like what is interesting to you and that sort of thing, like what has inspired you to want to be a developer on these games?
I'm British. I'm Welsh, actually, if that means anything to anyone. I know it probably won't to a lot of people. Outside of the game, I'm a big fan. Like, I read a lot. I don't really play a lot of games anymore these days. That's mostly a time and sort of motivation thing. I'm trying to make an effort not to be in front of a screen all of the time. Uh, as for what I actually do, well, like I said, I like reading a lot. I'm quite interested in murder mystery boxes, that sort of thing, figuring out puzzles, solving mysteries, reading stories, all that sort of thing.
Is that sort of like, have you taken inspiration from like enjoyment in puzzles, and like that? Do you do a lot of that when you build on IKEA and stuff?
I think it's hard not to take inspiration from everything, like all sources. Like every story you read, something might trigger in your brain and think, "Oh, I've got a great idea that's sort of derived from that," and that's found its way into IKEA on numerous occasions. And I would imagine the experience is similar for anyone that's done this sort of thing. I'm a huge fan of fantasy in particular. Like, I love Discworld. I love Tolkien. A huge fan of Wheel of Time. Wheel of Time in particular has inspired a massive amount of my creations over the years.
What about A Song of Ice and Fire? Elephant in the Room.
Never read the books, largely because I was hoping to have a complete series to start with, which seems like it's probably never going to happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've watched Game of Thrones. I wasn't an original watcher, but I came to really enjoy it, and like everybody, I think was very disappointed with the ending. But yeah, I'm a fan in general.
Question in chat from Eliadon. He asks, anything by Brandon Sanderson?
Yes and no. I mean, I know Brandon Sanderson finished the last 3 Wheel of Time books, so I've read those. I have a pile of Brandon Sanderson books to get through. I've just never gotten around to it yet.
Gotcha. And
The
Rogan
stress
asked
of
about the
many
Recluse
people.
series.
Nope. I need to add that to my list, I think, which I'm doing right now.
All right. So, you know,
The most recent series I read was Prince of Thorns, which was really, really good. I can highly recommend that if anyone's looking for something to read.
yeah, we'll try to intersperse some chat questions, and we're gonna get to the forum questions shortly. But I was gonna ask Scott Sidon if he has anything he'd like to ask Ictinius about. Ictinus, I'm sorry. I just don't want to leave you out of the conversation, man.
No,
Yeah, I
I'm
love the sound of my own voice, so feel free to interrupt.
no, do you have any pets?
I do. I have 2 cats. They are my babies. Colin and Moose are their names, and I'm sure
Moose. That's
pictures will
awesome.
find their way into the official Discord at some point, I imagine.
Ooh, I love cats.
How old are
Cat
they?
person.
Moose is about 14. She was a stray, and Colin is 8.
Gotcha.
Do
Okay.
they get along well?
No, they absolutely detest each other. Turf wars have been a very familiar part of my life for the last few years.
I understand that.
All right. Well,
Okay.
I'm gonna throw our first forum question in here. I think this is a good spot. We can kind of rotate between chat, forum, and our own questions. So the first one's from Oba, who is a Templar squire, I know. And they said, this is going to be an exciting stream. My question is, what is your favorite genre of books, movies, or music?
Books, like I already said, I'm a big fan of fantasy. I also quite like historical fiction and history non-fiction in general. Movies, I'm quite fond of disaster movies with like ridiculous consequences or outcomes or risks. Very much an escapism kind of thing.
Do you have a particular? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go on.
Do you have a particular era of history that you enjoy? History in general, or country or region?
Mostly mythology. Like I'm big into the Greek mythology, Egyptian mythology, that sort of thing. I think it's really fascinating, and that's another area that I think you can see that in a lot of games as a whole that is very inspirational when it comes to creating content.
Yes. 100%.
All right. All right. Anybody in chat got a question before we go to the next forum one? Okay. Alayla would like to know what your favorite tea is for reasons while shaming Durif, apparently.
My favorite tea.
Yes.
Well, as a native British person, English breakfast is always going to be a particular favorite, but I'm quite partial to Earl Grey bergamot tea as well.
Gotcha.
Mm.
And Rohan says, what do you see as the primary social function of fiction and fantasy? Just pure escapism?
I think so. I think escapism is like such a broad thing that it covers a lot of things. Sure, you can just read for entertainment, but I don't think that's quite the same experience as really losing yourself in a really, really compelling story. So, yeah, I think escapism is a fair answer.
Gotcha. All right. Let's see here. Let's see. All right, let's do another forum question. I think you sort of covered this a little bit when we asked you about your journey, but I'm going to ask it again just in case there's a different answer. Eliadon on the forums asked, what got you into MUDs in the first place?
Well, an accident really. While I was just looking around the internet, like I said, Kingdom of Loathing led somehow to Avalon. I'm not really sure how that happened, but yeah, it did somehow.
Gotcha. All right, let's see if we got some more chat questions. Not particularly. All right, let's see here. So, do you like? I know that I've gathered that you've come to Aetolia, and the fact that you're like mostly a builder producer and not a coder, which to me in my experience is pretty rare. Do you have any kind of like programming experience or training?
And nothing formal. I have a very basic grasp of like Rapture code, but that's really not impressive at all. The my sort of main experience would be from using the mobprog system that
Right.
IRE has, which is like a sort of pseudo code.
Yeah, it's like its own language. I remember it. It's actually
Yeah,
pretty easy to learn, in my opinion. It's really good.
it's easy to learn and it's simple in sort of concept, but I'm actually really impressed with how powerful it is and the amount
Yeah.
of insane things that you can do with it.
Yeah, Lahadon says, I don't know about that. Progs can be complicated. That's true. I've been there.
Yeah, anyone that's ever made a game or a puzzle will know exactly how complicated it can be.
Right. Would you like to ask a question there, Sidon?
Sure. Let me look at the.
You can
At
choose
the
to
forum.
ask the crazy ones or not. I was undecided on it.
So I will, yes. So I will actually, well, no, I will actually ask my question.
Okay.
Who is your favorite starship captain?
The one that you graciously gave me half an hour to think of a diplomatic answer for. Okay, so I'm going to preface this by saying I am not a huge Star Trek fan, but it's impossible not to love Patrick Stewart, right? Like, how can you not? So that's going to be
Yes.
my diplomatic, very non-committal answer.
Oh goodness. All right.
I will accept that.
All right. Robin asks in the chat, do you have any formal managerial experience from the town hall? It seemed like that was going to be your primary focus.
I do. Before I started in game administration, I spent several years in hospitality management, particularly restaurants and hotels, and quite a lot of years bartending as well, which is not management, but sort of industry adjacent.
Well, it definitely showed in the town hall. The town hall was something. I think a lot of us were blown away by it. Like it was really long, but it didn't feel that way to me. You know, like it felt like there was a good pace to it, and you were doing a great job at it.
Yeah, I was trying to get through the answers as quickly and efficiently as I could, but some of them obviously needed a lot more in-depth information. So I hope nobody was waiting for too long.
All right. Let's see here. All right. Icid had a question on the forums. He says, consuming other entertainment products often helps someone with design choices in a game they are responsible for. What kinds of games do you enjoy in your free time?
I don't play a lot of games anymore, but when I did, I was a huge fan of single-player RPGs. I've spent far more time than I'd like to remember modding Elder Scrolls games, both from a user standpoint and actually doing very minor dev on my own mods. I also played WoW for quite a long time. I was a Mythic Raider for a while and Mythic Plus key pusher, if that means anything to the chat. But I haven't played WoW for about a year and a half now.
Yeah, I've it's been about 8 months for me. I think I played it in December last year, and then I didn't even get mad at it. I just was like, I just started doing other things and just didn't connect anymore. Like it's that's definitely a whole other stream, but on why Blizzard and WoW are messed up. But
Yeah,
I,
there's a lot of stuff to unpack there.
yeah, well, I will say this, and I know there's been a lot of bad stuff with Blizzard lately, and I'm not trying to relate it to that, but specifically more of the way development was going on WoW. It was really starting to remind me of how things were going on Aetolia, and I'm glad that we seem to have righted the ship here.
Hopefully. I'll let you guys be the judge of that.
Right. So another question from Rohan in chat: Are you are you hiring a professional transcriptionist for the next town hall to save your poor fingers?
That's a very good question. I will consider it. I'm not sure if the next one tomorrow is going to be as intense because I think I've covered a lot of topics already, but it really wasn't that like I enjoyed every minute of it. It wasn't a problem typing out all the answers or figuring out all the responses or anything at all. I did a lot of prep beforehand to try and make it as easy for everyone as possible.
Gotcha. And someone named Horned Burger says, "How many credits do we need to pay you to get you to narrate things?"
Good question. Probably too many.
Yeah. All right. Well, I have a question for you. It's one that we already mentioned in the lead up to this, but I'd like you to expand upon it maybe and tell the rest of the chat. So, like I told you, I was like trying to research you a little bit in regards to your time on IKEA. And so I went to the forums and I saw your farewell thread for when you were coming over here. And like I said before, it said it was a sad farewell, and the thread seemed a little somber. But I'm sure you've had a lot of friends and good times on there, and you're gonna miss it. But like, how sad are you really? Like, are you good? Are you excited, or are you like a little bit of both? Or how did that come? Like, how did that work?
Now I'm really excited. Like last week of getting into everything, and I've kind of put the sadness about leaving to the back of my mind a bit as much as I can. But it was a really hard decision. I'm not going to lie.
Right.
Like 4.5 years being part of a team, helping build a team, putting so many projects together, having so many great experiences with the volunteers, with the staff, with players. You know, trolling Atalkaz has become a very important part of my life over the years.
Fair.
So saying goodbye to that and doing something new was really difficult. Like I very much struggled with the decision, but I think it was the right one, and I've really enjoyed my week so far, and hopefully that continues.
Okay, that's good to know. It seems like some people from there had the like are like following you over. I mean, that's pretty wild. Welcome everyone in Twitch chat here who's from Achaia. Um, so let's see here. Let's move on to the next question in the forum thread. And I'm not sure if I should ask Tetch this question because it's about kinks. So let's
Yeah,
move.
let's not go into that one.
Yeah, let's move on to the Solani question of who would win in a fight, a wasp or a bee.
That's an easy one. The wasp. No question. And the reason for that is that the wasp would want it more.
Wow. You seem very certain of that. Why are you so certain? We're asking the important
Not sure.
questions now.
That was the first impression I got when I read the question, and I was pretty confident in that answer.
Okay, gotcha.
But what type of wasp versus what type of bee? That makes a difference.
That one I have no idea on.
Because, which is it? Oh, the I think it's in Japan the bees that can vibrate at a temperature that is high enough to kill the wasp but not kill themselves.
Let's see.
And that's how they win in a fight. So I guess if it's just bee, honeybees. So if it's just a singular bee, then I would think the wasp wins. But so I guess that's the question.
Yeah, I'm over here almost getting slaughtered by spiders in the game right now, so bugs are no joke.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't really say much more about bees and wasps. I was much like one of the other questions at the town hall. I was not expecting it to be such a contentious topic.
Uh-oh. I better not die. I'm probably gonna
So
die.
you can concentrate for a second. I will ask the next question.
Okay, go ahead.
From Rasani, which is what piece of media or genre of media would you say was most informative to you as a storyteller or role player?
I think that probably comes back to what I've said already. Like reading a lot, playing a lot of role-playing games. Those have both been just incredible inspirations. I don't really take a lot of inspiration from like films or TV. I would say I think those are different delivery methods that don't really work for me.
Okay. And then we did have a question in chat from Rohin, which is, what was your greatest hurdle with the transition? Could it could be some concern or hang up about leaving, or some more mechanical difficulty with extricating from one game to another?
Yeah, so far the biggest difficulty has been just getting up to speed on the differences between the two games in like terms of command set, because a lot of stuff is shared across RE, a lot isn't. So things that last week were 2-minute jobs for me are now taking me 10 times as long. So getting back up to a speed on there, that's what stuck out the most while I've just been trying to clear through as much of a backlog as I can.
Okay.
Yeah, I can imagine with command sets how that could be. You get used to using reflexively certain things, and then that's not there yet, or does something different.
Yeah, things like I said, stuff that was so easy and sort of almost thoughtless last week has now taken me a long time to figure out, but I'll get there.
Now we have a couple more questions in chat too. Rohan, who is on fire, asks, "What's the most surprising thing about Aetolia so far besides discovering Rosmael's kinks?"
I think one of those most stark things I've noticed is that there's a lot more miscellaneous sort of quality of life things in the game here.
Yeah.
That's stuck out. I know that in Ikea we are, I say they, that willing to do that sort of thing, but it's less of a focus. So that's what immediately comes to mind when that question is asked.
Gotcha.
No,
And
I
go
would
ahead.
even agree with that, being a previous Achaean player, that Aetolia's just generic quality of life additions, I would say, are more than I would say almost more than about any other of the IRE games in terms of just those additions that have been added.
I would agree with that. As somebody that also played Empyrean for a long time, well, we both did, but I found myself oftentimes on Empyrean as a player and when I volunteered on there of being like, hey, you know this thing that Ayatollah has that nobody else has? Like, can we get that here? You know, that sort of thing. So,
And then Flynn also asked that you know, I actually don't think this is too Atolia because it can actually, you don't necessarily have to stick directly to what's available in Atolia right now for this question, but what's your favorite class archetype? I could say that could probably be a broad question of when you think of a class or something that you would like to play in generic sense, what is an archetype that would get you excited?
I almost always play some variety of mage in basically every game ever. But like, to reference Achaea classes, which might be a bit more appropriate since I have more experience, Alchemist and Priest are probably my two favorites over there.
Alchemist.
yeah, I never got to play the Alchemist on Achaea. But Rohan asks, can you pronounce Achaea again like 12 times in a row? It's important stuff, you know.
I'll do it 3 times. Achaea, Achaea, Achaea.
Achaea. Yeah, the last class I played on Achaea when I tried it out again about 4 years ago was I played Shaman, and that was because like I always really enjoyed the like the Vodun class on the Witchin class on Empyrean, like you know the voodoo dolls and stuff. It's a fun class.
Yeah, it's a great class.
I played Bard and Serpent were the two, and then I also used Fire Lord. So
Ooh,
Fire Lord
sounds
was fun.
Yeah, I like the flavor and theme of Firelord is really great.
I the death message, not just the death site, but the actual death text to Supernova was absolutely amazing in my um in my opinion. One of the favorite things ever.
Yeah, I like the Death Sight. I'm going to use him as an example here. Atalkes gazed into the primal fires, and Mezgar looked back.
Right.
All right, I'm gonna ask you Taz's question from the forums, or at least some of it. Let's see here. Yeah. So if you had to fight an exponentially growing number of 8-year-olds, what weapon would you pick to make it through the month if the kids all got the same thing?
There's been some debate on the correct answer to this question, and I've decided to select as my weapon of choice candy cane swords.
Oh, oh boy, oh boy. Now the most important question is: are you going to work those candy cane swords into the Christmas event this year?
That is a great question to which I do not have an answer.
Very well, very well. If you had to pick a century to live in other than this one, which would it be and where?
I don't think I have a good answer for that one, to be honest, which I don't like saying, but being like, interested in history, I think there's a lot of bad in the past. So picking a century is fraught with various awful things that you'd have to deal with.
No, yeah. It's like, yeah, I'll choose this century. I like this things about it. I would have died at the age of 12 from a
Right, exactly, or cholera, or some other thing from a list of disastrous possibilities.
yes.
All right. Rowan asks, what's your favorite RP thing that you were involved in? Could be big or small, player or builder.
Let me see. My favorite 2 events from Achaea that I was heavily involved in were the Yggdrasil release event and probably the last Black Wave. Those are the two biggest things we've kind of done over the last few years. So if I had to pick between the two, probably the Yggdrasil release. It was just really, really thematic based on Achaea's story, and there were some really, really cool moments with the big bad monologuing to a backdrop of blood rain and players playing drums, trying to summon the jailer, that sort of thing.
Nice.
That was amazing. I absolutely loved it.
Sounds fun. I hope we get something like that someday in Anatolia again. All right, let's see here. Moving on. Who did you romance in Mass Effect? Did you even play Mass Effect?
I tried to play Mass Effect and rage quit when it came to the driving portion.
I see.
And I've tried again when it was remastered and had a similar frustration. So I'll take the fifth on that one.
And I think that's you in chat, right? I need to see if that's you, right?
Oh, I saying go away to Frostjack.
Yeah.
That's me.
I'm gonna mod you because I mod everyone that comes on the show. There we go. All right. And then, do you use Vim or Emacs, and also tabs or spaces? I'm gonna guess you don't use either because you're not a coder.
That is the right answer. But to sort of answer a tangential question, my text editor of choice is Sublime Text.
Interesting.
And tabs all the way.
No Notepad love here.
Afraid not. People have been trying to talk me into Notepad for several years.
Okay. And then the very final question in the thread is from Isid. What are some settings, stories, books, or other media that influence your take on Aetolia's setting and fantasy or writing overall?
I think I've mostly talked about that already, but
Right.
if I had to pick one, it would probably be Wheel of Time. Just hugely inspirational for me. And a lot of the stuff I've read there has found its way into Achaea in various different ways.
All right. I'm going to get to the questions in chat. I see two of them there. I'm going to start with Rowan's again. Important question. Have you ever played Artificer in D&D 5th edition?
I have played D&D 5th edition, but I'm not a huge fan. I think it's really DM dependent, so I'm open to being sold on more experiences there, but my experiences so far have not been great.
Gotcha. Sidon, would you like to do the other two questions in chat?
Sure.
There's one from Frostjack and from Brax there, right next to each other.
Yes. So starting from the top, will you be channeling your hatred of 7 a.m. spike traps into new Aetolian content?
So for some background on that, the Frostjacked is part of the Achaea team, and alongside him and Nicola, we were playing Sea of Thieves a few years ago quite a lot, and ran into some problems with dodging spikes, which has haunted the three of us for multiple years since, with someone who will remain nameless being extremely out of control and hysterical about trying to dodge platforms.
Okay. And then from Brax, using the limited knowledge you have so far entirely on impulse, if you had to become one Aetolian god in real life right now, who would you pick?
That is a difficult question. Of the gods, I think Chakrasal is probably the most fascinating to me. That's really straight off the top of my head, though.
Yeah. Have you read much into any of them, like most of them yet, or just some of them? Or I'm just
a
curious.
little. I remember some from my player experience, but a lot of that's evolved over the years as well. It's actually one of the things I'm most excited about learning more on God lore. I think is some of the best stuff in all the RE games.
I agree. We've talked about that a little bit in the past here, and that's why it was always so mind-boggling to me when they killed the gods off on Empyrean. Like, it's just weird stuff. But yeah, we've come to an end on the forum questions, and there's no more chat questions. We can come up with some more questions. We can stop asking questions, and we can just talk about stuff. You can hang out.
So, actually, I do have one question. Okay. When the pandemic restrictions end, what is the first thing you're going to do?
Probably visit one of my closest friends who lives in Oxfordshire, which I've not been able to do for a year and a half or so.
Mm.
Not an amazingly exciting answer, but it's something I'm looking forward to very much.
Rowan
Hey,
asks, "What is your favorite
traveling.
question to be asked?"
Anything to which the answer is find out in game.
Oh, okay.
That's my favorite. Those are my favorite questions.
Let me
Quesception.
think.
It's hilarious to me. I must admit it's hilarious to me that we decided to take questions on the forums because we didn't want to be overwhelmed by questions in the chat. And now we're able to just kind of handle it. Jeremy Saunders asks, "Who is your favorite boss man?"
Well, it has to be Jeremy, right? Jeremy's the best.
But is it Jeremy Saunders?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, gotcha.
I actually have nothing but good things to say about Jeremy, especially over this last week or so when I've gotten to know him a bit more and had more of a reason to talk to him.
Yeah, Jeremy's a good guy.
Speak in pentameter if you're being forced to say say that answer.
Blink twice if you need help, Bob the Builder.
No, I don't need help. Jeremy is frightened of Nicola. So
That's fair. That's fair. So we did get asked, will you drop Divine Fire in Dual Bullrock?
Oh God.
no, I think is the answer on that one. Short and sweet.
Will you take? Here's a question from me. Will you take control of an NPC and drop Divine Fire in Dual Bullrock?
I don't know. Okay, actually, I'm not entirely sure what Dual Bullrock actually means. I'm assuming it's something funny.
I don't know. He's a player in the game. We're just being silly.
Yeah, he's part of our PK crowd. So
Chat wants you to fight
very
him.
invested.
They want you to be our hero and he be the villain, or maybe it's the other way around. I don't know. That's a good question. Do you when you play games or when you play roles, do you more identify with playing as a hero or a villain?
Probably closer to the villain on the spectrum, but I've done both a lot.
Gotcha.
I think, especially in like these type of games, villains are so important. Just as a sort of segue.
Do you enjoy playing the villain more then, as well as like finding it easier or whatever?
I think it is easier just because there tends to be a lot fewer restrictions on what you're able to do as a character.
Right.
But that again can be its own like big reward for playing on a like heroic sort of team.
Yeah.
It can be fun to do both.
For sure. Yeah, Rowan says in chat again, what do you think makes a good player villain? Like the top 3 qualities.
This is a difficult one.
Mm-hmm.
I probably need to think about that a bit.
It's okay.
Like in the context of a mud, I think remembering that there's someone else on the other side is probably the number one thing you need to be good at. Yep. 2, probably not being afraid of causing trouble. I know that a lot of people have hesitations about doing that sort of thing, and I think the best villains are the ones who just sort of jump straight in. 3rd, I don't know. Those are probably my big 2.
I would agree with those. I would say for a 3rd is, at least for my if I was just to tack on, I would say going into most situations willing to lose.
Agree. Yeah.
Actually, yeah, I would agree with that as well. I think that applies across the board, not just to villains.
Yes.
Though. I think
Yeah.
being able to take a loss and recognize the opportunity that gives you from a role playing perspective is really important.
Yeah, I think the fear of losing kind of breeds the stagnancy in the game. I think that's been one of our biggest problems is like nobody wants to lose, so nothing ever happens. And that's kind of one thing I was thinking about at the town hall last night, but I didn't say it. Really, is just like, like somebody has to lose in order for something interesting to happen. That's just my simple way of looking at it, personally.
I agree, but I can also see the perspective as well that everybody is the hero in their own story, right?
Absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yep. No, that is very true. I mean, we are all the protagonists of our own story, so
And your friend from Achaia asks, do you prefer pushing forward true villains or just antagonists?
I think true villains are great when done well, but having numerous big bads, I personally feel like is not a great thing. Like, so more short-term, relatable antagonists is my preference.
Gotcha.
I think the best antagonists, best villains are the ones that you could sort of see yourself empathizing with a bit.
Right.
Whereas big bads tend to be much more nebulous and in your face.
It's why, the obvious comparison is Thanos. That's what made him so good. You could kind of see
Right.
his point, basically. Even
Yeah.
if you
The
don't
more
agree with
the
it.
more empathy that there is there, I think the darker and more interesting it gets.
Yeah, for sure.
hmm hmm
And
one question we did have a little bit earlier
okay.
was how often do you yourself do things or possibly even find times for things like like mob possessions, or is that typically outside of scope as a producer?
That's a good question.
I don't think anything is out of scope for the producer, honestly. That controlling denizens, writing, building, progging, basically, I don't think there's anything that should be off the table, and that's the atmosphere I really want to build. That I can help with basically anything, and I do enjoy doing like the role play side of things as well, a lot.
Right. It's often been my opinion, somebody that's volunteered a few times, that there's a lot more emphasis sometimes put on the coder role than there is the building role play role. And I think that it's great. I honestly think it's really great and refreshing that you're not a coder. Like, I think that's actually a very big positive. So you can do exactly what they hired you to do, is fix the role play and the events and stuff, which is awesome. Well, or just take the, like you said, the load off of Rosmael and Karok and stuff too. So I think it's
Yeah,
great.
absolutely. They've both been fantastic as well. Shout out to them this week while they've dealt with waking up every morning to a gigantic list of things I need to ask them about.
And Brax asks in chat, do you have a favorite event you've run that went entirely in a different direction than you expected because of player choices?
I'd probably refer back to the Black Wave event that I mentioned earlier, where a character called Tesha gave away an incredibly important artifact to the enemy team,
I remember that. Oh.
which has become a pretty bit of a meme in Achaean lore now. But that threw us off a lot. We had to do a lot to account for that happening, and it
You're
was
ma-
it
you're
was
ma-
it was it was unexpected, but also quintessentially Tesha for anyone that knows that character.
Yes, yes, yes.
I was gonna
Yeah.
say you're making a talk as uncomfortable. Keep going.
Oh,
Atalka's
yes.
actually had to be part of the resultant cleanup in that event.
Hmm.
Mm,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
that
think it's
was.
great when there is real agency, and even though we didn't account for that and expect it, when I've been running events with the Achaia team, we've always tried to take something in stride that people have initiated and run with it. Like another example, during the Yggdrasil release event, which was heavily elemental themed, one of our players had the brilliant idea that to calm down the air elemental, that she could fly a kite and play
That's
with it.
funny.
So overnight, we're frantically putting together this kite prog and figuring out how it's going to work, and
Nice.
and went with it. But we had zero plans for that. Like to start with, it was something that was completely player driven. So while we might gripe in the moment, it is one of the best parts of an event, I think, when people can actually influence what happens. Even
Absolutely.
if sometimes you have to have an end game in mind,
Yeah.
there should be a lot of roads to get there, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, it's like in my experience, and I don't know if this is still how it's done or not, but like, my experience was from like basically 10, 12 years ago. But like you used to have to plan things out for an event, like on a wiki page, right? But then when you think about it, these events and the role play are very branching. So it's like, it's kind of weird because like it's really hard to be able to write a branching diagram for an event as opposed to just like, this is what's in my head going down. This is what I think could happen, but then like they always throw you like a completely different thing.
Yeah, and it's impossible to account for all the things that people might randomly think of and spring on you, but
Yeah,
allowing room for it at least, I think, is always a good idea when it's possible. It's not always possible, and I think people understand that, but when it does happen, it feels that much better.
absolutely. Rowan asks, can you give an example of some kind of conflict you've had to resolve amongst your peers?
Where to start? Arguing with Faistus has become a bit of a hobby in a care of how certain things work, how they should work, different philosophies. So I can't really give any specifics, but the we try, and I'm intending to do this here too, make it as collaborative and discussion driven as possible when it comes to like how things should happen in the game.
Yeah,
Trying to think of the latest example, but it's not coming to me.
yeah. Obviously we're kind of moving towards doing a lot of Aetolia and Achaea questions, which I think is kind of natural because it's not like I said before, I'm not going to ask you about your family and stuff like that. But what I would ask then, if we're going to go down this route a little bit for until you want to leave or whatever, so I'm curious about like what is your style of like handling your Solani and your staff? Like are you going to do like little regular scheduled meetings? Are you just going to check in on them individually? Like how do you do that sort of thing?
I'm still kind of feeling things out a bit there, but I like to be available as often as possible. I'd rather not like have to say, talk to me about this in 3 days or whatever, if that makes sense.
Right.
It's all about the team. Like nobody should feel left out on a limb. They're struggling with building an area or struggling with coming up with an event idea. I want to be approachable. That's my main goal when it comes to that sort of thing. So I will be doing one-on-ones. There'll be plenty of conversations, lots of group discussions. I think have been a real success in Achaea's direction when it comes to that sort of thing. So I'd like to continue that.
All right. Sidon, do you want to ask a question or do you want to do the questions in chat next? Uh-oh. Oh,
Um,
you're there. Okay.
yeah, I'm trying to think here if I have any particular questions. No, I'll ask one in chat here.
Okay.
Let's see. I think the next one,
I think it's Tom, Ian explosion, right below Rowan's, about 448.
um,
About
yeah,
classless
so,
players.
yeah, do you have any opinions on classless players? And I guess I could probably even, maybe even expand upon that and, especially within Aetolia where the game is heavily, where it's heavily polarized and many things are tied to cities. What are your thoughts about classless players?
I don't really have a strong opinion on it. I think if somebody wants to do a classless character and go as far as they can with it, that's cool. But I'm not really sure that there's a lot of scope for supporting it.
That's fair. It's Yeah, I mean I could see that. Because I mean even in Achaea when you had cityless people, they typically still had a class.
Right, yeah. I can only really think of one recent example where somebody has tried to go classless and make it to the end game level while doing it. It's not something that's really ever come up before.
Well, we might see it yet.
He is sticking to his guns on that one, I will say. Oh, it's the same dude, they all said.
Ah, right, okay.
Same guy, still doing it.
Well, good luck. If you can do it, I'll be impressed.
Yeah, Rowan also asked, "What's your favorite way to cycle down after a good fight or debate?" I like ice cream and/or long walks.
I like ice cream too, I guess. Um, I I don't really get out a whole lot. I'm quite enjoying my sort of hermit-esque lifestyle for the last couple of years, but probably just like spending time with the cats. Really, it's always fun.
Gotcha.
Splitting up a fight, just getting away from the screen, I think is really important, which is something I've not been
Hmm.
great at in the past.
Yeah, and then Flynn also asked a bit of a silly question: How do you pronounce Isid, the character name in Ayatollah? Iesid.
I'd probably lean towards like I'm probably going to get this really wrong, but like Eacid.
Yesid. Okay. I always assumed it was Isid because I'd seen people refer to the shorthand nickname of the character as like apostrophe Sid, SID. So I was just like, well, it's got
Right.
to have Sid in it. So that was my reasoning. Next question. First of all, as a fellow tea guzzler, welcome. Do you like fish chips and mushy peas?
Fish and chips, yes. Mushy peas, no. Which is probably another controversial answer.
Fish and chips. If when I do travel to England, I do want to try. Do you consider fish and chips? Does it have to be served in newspaper for it to be authentic, or is that specific for you?
I think the newspaper is somewhat important to the authentic experience. Yeah,
See. I have a question.
especially if you're eating it
Sorry.
outside at risk of seagulls deciding that it's theirs.
Oh goodness. So, I was gonna ask. Speaking of the UK and all that, and have you traveled much? Like, have you been to United States? Have you been to other
Yeah,
parts of Europe?
I lived in the USA for a year or so, a couple of years
Okay.
ago in Illinois, and I've traveled across at least half of Europe. I've been parts of Africa. I've never made it to Asia or Australia or anywhere yet, but not something I'm like hugely interested in. But I like traveling within reason.
And if you don't mind me asking, what was the reason for Illinois? You don't have to answer. I was just curious.
It was work related at first, but yeah, there's a lot of background there that I don't really want to go into.
Okay, fair enough. It just seemed like a very random state to pick. Like a lot of people when they come overseas to America, they're probably gonna go to like New York or California or something. But
The
I drove through
Midwest is
Illinois.
beautiful.
Yeah.
There's lots of horizon to see in the Midwest.
Okay. Orithella asked earlier in chat, what is your favorite flavor of ice cream?
Mint.
Mint. Ugh. Man.
I love mint, so I'm actually right there with you. In fact, and I'm okay with getting judged for this though, but I have found a mint chocolate chunk ice cream at 7-Eleven of all places that is absolutely amazing. It's like their brand.
They have some good stuff there. I like to get their brand of like Gatorade when I'm out and it's hot and stuff. But let's see. Moving on. Rowan asks, have you been to the Scottish Highlands? If so, or if not really, what's your greatest interest there?
I've been to Scotland quite a few times. I have some really close friends in Glasgow that I've at one point used to visit like twice a year, but it's kind of fallen out over the last year or so with COVID. But I haven't been out like on the highlands, up the mountains, all the rough and tumble outside stuff. That's not for me. I'm a desk jockey at heart.
Gotcha. Your prisoner from Cell Block B, known as Helra, asks, do you have a favorite mythological story?
Prometheus.
Prometheus. That's a good one.
Stealing fire from the gods.
Hell yeah. Let's see what else we got here. What is your favorite whiskey lately? There's another one.
I should probably say that I don't drink.
Me either. We are both boring in that regard. But
Yeah, very boring there, unfortunately.
But it's a good way to stay out of trouble.
Yes, that's true. Some haunting memories from my early 20s.
Yeah, mine. I had some haunting memories in my early 20s, but they mostly involved Ayatollah. Boring equals healthy and well adjusted. Well, I don't think I look too healthy, but I think I'm well adjusted. So, at least I got that going for me. Rowan asks, how many buttons are on your mouse? Asking the hard hitting questions.
Let me see. 12, I think.
What? 12? Good grief. Is that from your World of Warcraft days?
It is.
All right.
Yeah, 12 by the looks of it.
Gotcha. Glenn asks, do you have a least favorite mythological story or one that gets misrepresented so much that you mostly get mad or frustrated about it, despite liking it?
I don't know about least favorite, but I always roll my eyes a bit at the whole let them eat cake thing, which has become such an iconic part of European history, but it's permanently cursed to be misrepresented.
Yeah, I was actually myself learning about recently the misrepresentation of Marie Antoinette and her actual personality in person during that time period.
Mm-hmm. I'm with the Lydon in chat. He asks the most important question: can we have jesters now? I agree with him completely. I would buy Jester in a heartbeat.
No.
That class is awesome. Is one of the favorite things that Kay has ever done. One of my favorite things.
Yeah.
Just
no jesters.
Oh. Can we have any class that uses the voodoo dolls though? That's what I want to know.
That is probably not up to me for the time being.
I know.
I need to think about it. I do think that archetype is pretty compelling and cool, but as far as class goes, that's way above me at the moment.
I know. I'm just messing with you. All right. Yeah, because your friend said because it's a running gag for 8 years that we're deleting jesters because of how terrible they are. I mean, I'm gonna be real. I'm gonna be real. Jack in the Box is one of the coolest instant kills in all of Iron Realms. So I don't believe you.
I haven't played a K in over a year, and I could still rant for over an hour about how much I hate Jester.
Sounds like somebody did a good job designing that class.
It's a very powerful class and like mechanically quite strong. I think the problem most people have with it is the flavor. But yes, I'm not a fan of jesters, I'm afraid.
Wilkstick says Vivisect is the best insta kill in Iron Realms. That I will say that might actually be true, if we're being serious.
B star, I will actually have to give it to Adelkez. Just the aesthetics of that is it is pretty cool too. I've died to it plenty of times from him, in fact. And just reading the message for it was great.
That's actually a good question too. Now that I think about it, so like, out of all the games that we have in Iron Realms that you've played and you've seen, what is your like favorite insta kill? Like, because everybody seems to have a different answer for this.
I like Sansa, which is the Shaman insta kill in Ikea.
Okay.
Where you build mentals and shrink someone's head.
Yeah, it's pretty dope.
That's my preferred method of killing people.
Yeah, in Empyrean, on the they had the Witch in class, which was like the Shaman class. It had the voodoo dolls or whatever, and their version of it was called Obliterate, where you just like blow the doll up and blow them up. That was fun. Pariah.
So I was not much of a fan of Sansa while I was on the receiving end as a Sulteth during the event that we ran, but yeah.
Oh, they did change it to Shaman on Empyrean? That's interesting. Okay, I didn't know that. Flynn says it's clearly the pack instant kill for shifters. I was gonna say that too. I think that's got to be in my top 5. Is probably quarter on Aetolia. You literally, one person has a jaw lock on them, and the other shapeshifter just rips them into pieces, like limb from limb. It's pretty brutal.
I will say right now it's for me at the moment. I will say it's a toss up between the consume messages for Sciomancer
Mm.
and Call's message for Revenant is
Oh, is that
just
like the
the
retribution mirror?
well, yeah, because you're basically are like literally cutting the shadow out of them, and since
Oh,
they
that's cool.
can't survive without shadow, they die.
That's pretty cool. I haven't seen that one yet. That's neat.
Yeah, it's the messages around Revenant are really cool because it's a shadow class that's all about basically cutting the shadow out of people because
Yeah.
of its lore.
Yeah, so shout out for real to any of the people involved in writing the messages for Revenant. Sounds like they're very cool.
I'm sure they're watching the stream, but I'll pass that on as well.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
Eclipse, yeah.
And just to respond to what I saw in the chat, I think I love a good deliverance bomb as well.
Yeah, yeah. We have some of those sometimes
Especially,
too.
especially when it stops for a few seconds halfway through and then resumes.
Yeah. They're like, oh, they killed all these people on my team. Surely that's enough. And then nope, they just yeah. Yeah. I had to go away for like a week, a month or two ago, and poor Benedicto hadn't killed anyone in Aetolia in like a month because like things had slowed down. And then like while I was gone, he killed like a bazillion people in one day using Deliverance, and I was like sad I missed it. Deliverance is definitely one of the coolest insta kills, not just by message, but by like the way it works. I wish there was more stuff in Aetolia combat that was good against people focusing one person, but that's a different conversation. Let's see.
I think I'm almost out of time now. If you have one or
Okay,
two more things to ask.
that's sure. Sure. Anybody else have anything to ask before we get Sam out of here?
Going once, going twice.
Sarge
Oh,
asked one further up. Let's see here.
scroll.
Okay, you can do it if you want. I see it.
Nope, you go ahead and do it.
Okay.
Um,
Sarge says, given the general idea of an open conversation with planning, is there a time when players should reach out directly with concerns going forward in events, even if they are already going forward?
I think that's something that would need to be up to your discretion. Like, if you feel something is going horribly wrong and badly, then of course feel free to reach out. But I would ask generally try and give things a chance to sort of sort themselves out first, because my plan is that there is a plan, if that makes sense. I'm not aiming to do anything that's random that doesn't really have an outcome already in mind, if that makes sense.
Okay. And then we'll have this one be the last one. Rowan asks, what's the coolest bug you ever discovered, and why did it stand out to you?
Okay, I didn't actually discover this bug, but it's probably my favorite bug ever. There was a delay in IKEA on unsent mail being sent back to the sender or something like that.
Hmm.
And when Facetus finally fixed it, there were some people that were stood at like Center Crossing or the Crossroads or whatever, literally just receiving mail over and over and over and over for about an hour. It was like Harry Potter being assaulted by owls. It was fantastic. It was great.
that is amazing.
Good times. Yep. So, before we get you out here, is there anything you want to say in closing before you get out of here? Like to the
Just,
whole player
well,
base here?
thanks for inviting me on. If you didn't make my town hall yesterday, I'll be doing another one tomorrow. And if you do have any problems, feel free to get in touch with me. Hopefully, this is the first week in a long, good history that's coming up. That makes sense?
Oh yeah. Thanks for coming by, man. I hope we see you again here. If not, we'll see you in game. And we really appreciate you coming and helping our game out and making it the best it can be.
Yeah, I'm excited to keep going. Thanks for having me on again. Cheers.
No problem. See you later.
Yeah, take care.
All right. I'm going to move your picture up now next to mine real quick. All right, guys. So I think the next thing we're going to get into probably will be class lead stuff if you all want to. Let's see here.
Yeah.
Do we want to take a break and see if the other people are interested in coming on for class leads now that they don't have to worry about being scared of the new producer?
That is entirely up to you. I think we can probably start talking about some of it and why we see if maybe they want to come on.
Okay. You're probably way more involved in the class leads in general than I am. There are some that were pertinent to me and that I have opinions on, but you probably, for the most part, are gonna, if it's okay, you should probably be
Yeah.
leading the conversation on this one.
Yeah. So I think we had a pretty I don't want to say eventful, but I do want to say that we had a productive class lead session. Yeah, so I mean, hand wraps, those are always going to be fun. Because I mean, they do definitely help with people who are, if you're outside the sector otherwise and you're attempting to keep them in place. But I do think it's going to be interesting, especially with the change to all player ints not being affected by PvE artifacts. I know that was mostly directed toward Indorani, but it also is going to be, it's also going to impact Sentinels as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how that actually comes to impact fights, either insect or even in hunting grounds and things of that nature. Let me think.
So I've got the in game now for everyone. I've got the survival report pulled up with the hand wrap solution. What I want to say, and I'm kind of with Sarge and Chad on this. It's like, well, in the sense that like I like the idea that these hand wraps are going to do what we want them to and stop people from just fleeing conflict or whatever immediately. But at the same time, it's like those of us that don't do sect or pay attention to it, like how do you get the hand wraps? How much of doing sect does it take to get the hand wraps, and so on and so forth. Like that's what I'd like to know because I have no idea personally, and I think that it's kind of a little weird to tie this solution to sect, but that's coming from somebody that doesn't do sect. So
yeah, so the sect is the hand wraps are part of the wares that you get for marks for doing the sect. So each time that you win a sect duel, you rank up in the sect, or you kill somebody without any assists outside of the sect. If you are a member of the Sect of Blades, you do get marks. I'd actually have to. I think I can log in. I think my hand is working a bit better. Yeah, that's what I said. You do get marks from killing 1v1 as long as there's no assist. And they are okay, so they are 5k marks. So yeah, with duels inside the sect, you only get a set amount, which is 100. But that amount also goes down the more times that you win. So it's not like every time you kill somebody. So let's say, Almo kills me 5 times, which he does regularly. The first time that he wins is he gets the full amount, and that continues to go down each time that he wins, and continues to get less marks each time that you win against the same person in that season. When the season ends and we get new sect ratings, that resets, and you can get the full amount from killing somebody again. So you can't like just farm the sect in that regard and kill the same person over and over and over.
Right.
It does take fighting different people or trying to get one-on-one kills outside the sect, which are pretty typically, difficult unless you're going to hunting grounds, vortex, or fracture, and deliberately hunting people.
Right. So the hand wraps, are they a permanent artifact? Are they a consumable? Like, what are they exactly?
They do decay,
Okay.
and I believe they only have a set amount of charges. Let me see
Okay.
if I can log in and take a look here. My hand is feeling better, so
Cool. I'm gonna make your
yeah.
little image a little bigger too. Gotta make that cat bigger.
3 uses, and yes, they decay. So you can buy them, but again, marks take long enough, and there's typically other things people, want to buy. Try to buy like the behead token or the custom death site token. So the sect marks really are a very finite resource. You really do have to consider how you're spending them.
Right. Well, I think that, in my opinion, that the solution is definitely better than it being rejected entirely. But I think that 3 uses for 5,000 marks, especially like if you're somebody that doesn't like sect, it's probably, I don't know, not the greatest thing in the world in my opinion. But I would have preferred honestly to see some kind of artifact that does the same thing. But
Well, there
that's
kind of
okay.
is. It's the rapier that you get from the duel.
What? Yeah, but like, how many people are gonna ever have that though? Like, I don't know. The idea of I thought of the class lead system was to like make changes that affects everyone, you know. But I don't know. That's just my opinion.
So I'm pulling it up so I can read it a bit more. So let me see here. So with this is I understand what you're trying to say, that it affects everybody, but I also understand that it is trying to make it to where it's a very controlled situation. So we do want to be able to engage people and make that engagement meaningful, but we also want to be able to give that person a choice who's being engaged. And one of those choices is to disengage from the conflict if they choose to. The hand wraps and the rapier by extension does remove that choice, but being able to remove that agency from somebody else should have some sort of cost associated with it, to me, in that opinion.
Mm.
Yes, it does mean that it's not available to everyone, but at the same time, it also gives more incentive for more people who might want to be involved in 1v1 combat to start to participate in the sect, because as it was talked about at the town hall, sect participation is really minimal right now.
Mm-hmm.
We have the same people, I mean, yes, I would hesitate to say anything more than honestly like 5-ish, maybe 10-ish on the outside, but really honestly it's closer to 5. Who are participating in sect on a daily basis. So if you're really wanting to get engagement in that 1v1, a sect is a great way to actually show that this actually matters to you
Right.
and get people to actually participate.
Yeah.
Because the thing of it is especially with marks, is one, they don't expire. You can stop doing sect and you continue to hold on to them as long as you don't leave the sect. But and as I said, you get 1,000 of them for every time you rank up, and you rank up by just doing sect duels, win or lose. So winning or losing, you still have ways of gathering those marks.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm actually quite fine with it, because I think it is while it isn't available to everyone, I think it gives a good reason and a good way to incentivize people to actually participate in a 1v1 setting. And I know that they were already talking about possibly visiting more ways to incentivize the interaction in the sect, but also build on 1v1 conflict outside of the sect in general to hopefully get more people participating.
Right. Yeah. And one thing we were considering for doing this week before we had the tennis on and stuff was that maybe we could have talked about sect a bit. So it's funny that we are now, but like I do want to stay a bit on to the class leads because that's what we're on right now. But I will say that I think it would be interesting to spend some time talking about sect on a future episode when we have more people on. Because
Yeah, no, and
it's a
go
big
ahead. I'm
topic.
sorry.
Well, I was just gonna say it is a big topic, and it would be good to like get it out there for sure. Even though I
Yeah,
don't really participate in it myself, I have a couple times in the past, and it's just the way it is in its current state is just not something for me personally. So
it so what 1v1 it is definitely a hard thing to balance. So it's kind of a situation of a lot of games where there's other people playing and you're first getting into it, and there's always the chance that you're going to be either competing against those who have been doing it a lot longer than you have. I still remember years ago when I got into StarCraft, and um, the first time I jumped online to try to match against somebody, I got completely creamed, even though I thought I was pretty good, quote unquote good,
mm-hmm.
because I'd already done the campaign and I could defeat the computer and stuff like that. Tiers were introduced, I know, in some of the newer games, but I'm not going to disagree with them. I think they could have a use. It's just finding how that crossover and how its implementation is going to be. I don't necessarily don't necessarily think that tiers perhaps, but I would maybe say something around rating-ish, maybe. But even that's hard to agree, because here's the thing is with tiers and also with basing on rating, is it still comes down to participation. Right now, I understand people are fighting only the top end people, and that makes it really difficult to want to get involved. 100%, because you just keep hitting the same people, which is basically like running high speed into a wall, and getting crushed. That is horrifically discouraging. The difficulty with tiers that I could see, and with any kind of basing it somewhat on your rating, is unless participation increases, how are you going to move out of those tiers, or how are you going to get fights that you need to move forward? Because if you're the only one in, say, your tier, or if you're the only one within your rating, or the only one who's fighting within that rating or within that tier, you're not getting any experience at all either.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things we have to look at with implementation.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough nut to crack, and I hope that it is something that gets a real actual look at, and not just like, oh, we made one little change here, like
Yeah.
sect could be good. It's just it just really is, regardless of the pros and cons of it, it does feel bad for people to get smushed by the highest tiered people over and over when they're just trying to start out, like. And also, honestly, it's kind of cheesy because like for some reason I can still see when people go into sect and die in sect, even though I quit sect, and so I see the sect death sites all the time, and it's like it's often the same person over and over, like smushing like newbies, and it's just I don't know.
But to a degree, that unfortunately that can very much be one v one combat. If you look at free for alls, if you look at bloodbaths, depending upon
Yeah,
who's participating, you have the people who are really good, um, and um, and you even with the if you don't participate in some way in 1v1, even if it's not sect, if it's finding arena spars, or if it's something, you need to participate in 1v1 in some way if you want to improve.
right.
Do we maybe perhaps need more methods to do that? And how do we address that as a player base? And yeah, again, yes, sect points and 1v1 outside counts. If you can, as long as you don't get an assist, um, that that can count. So if you can as apparently was being talked about on web, possibly doing like a like even a player-driven Fight Club kind of thing,
Right.
in that, you know, you are asking in this group or clan or something like that, that, you know, kind of try to help pair with kind of where you are. So that way you can start getting more experience versus just, you know, you're just getting into it and you're fighting the top tier of people all the time
Right.
and not really getting any chance to explore your route, what might be good, what might be bad,
Yeah.
and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I will say right now though, to anyone who's listening or otherwise, I don't care where you are, which side you're on. I will spar anyone and I will give feedback. I'll give feedback on what I think you're doing well, what I think could be improved, and even how you can make sure I don't kill you. So if you ever want to fight or anything like that, just reach out to me if I'm not doing something and I'm not, you know, busy or something like that. I'm always willing to help anyone with PK stuff.
It's good to hear. So, moving on, is there any other specific class or lead reports you'd like to talk about, like what happened with the announce posts and stuff like that?
Um, I'm happy peace went through.
Okay.
Um,
Which report was that? Do
because
you know offhand? I'll pull it up for you.
that was report 3002.
Okay.
Um, and it was just lengthened a little bit. It went from 1.5 to 2 seconds, which I think is a good thing. I am 100% for any class of having an affliction that's the same speed as pill. It was like 1.5,
Mm-hmm.
so which is the speed of pill balance. And if you can afflict as fast as your pill balance is, to me that's going to be an issue. And that's anywhere.
Right.
Because
Hmm.
so with it was modifiable.
Yeah, Wilkstick in chat says pill balance is 1.9 and peace was faster, is what it was.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm guessing the peace was 1.5 and the pill balance was 1.9, is what we're
Gotcha. I
thinking.
misread that. Yeah. So yeah, it's even faster. So it was even faster. So yeah,
Right.
that made it even more of a problem.
Right.
Because especially when it's sitting behind something that can make cell sites incurable, it became very much of a either a need to reset, or you could to a point get your prios right, even that, but yeah, I'm happy with that change in particular. Um, Let me think if there's anything else from the list that I was happy to see. Um, what are your thoughts on your mastery report getting approved?
Well, okay. So first off, it's better. It's like one of those things, like with the hand wraps, where I see it is better than nothing. I'll give it that. And in saying that, I'm not saying it's bad either. It is better than nothing. I don't think it goes far enough. However, it also was implemented in a way in which it was not working, and nobody knew for several days because I'm like the only person that uses it, I guess. So it was bugged, but then Karok immediately fixed it. Basically, he fixed it like an hour after I said something, and it hasn't really mattered. It hasn't come up much lately because a lot of the group fights that I've been in recently that have had both sides come to it have actually been really large group fights. And you probably haven't noticed this because you were gone all week, but a lot of our group fights lately with the increased amount of people logging in now because of the changes with the staff and stuff.
Mhm.
We've had like 10 to 14 people on each side, like these gigantic group fights. And so whenever that happens, I'm probably getting one hit on someone before they die, so it's not really. It would matter if it'll matter like if I was to kill maybe 5 or 6 people with a group, maybe the seventh or eighth one or so, I could probably use my blade release because of the mastery. Like it's still, I mean, and again, that's better than nothing, but at the same time, it still just like feels
Mm-hmm.
like it's like we're not willing to back off of this change that like was made as a knee-jerk reaction before we had mirrors to people that were complaining about it that didn't know what the class did. Like that's what it feels like to me, but maybe it'll change eventually. But I'm actually as a bit of a tangent, I actually, and you might find this interesting, I decided to forget my monk class and I learned Sisson yesterday.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. What fueled that change?
So with monk, I still believe monk's one of the best classes in the game overall, but mostly for PvP. And I didn't have the time or inclination to write all the stuff I would need to in Sunder to do what I want to do with Takura. Um, However, you know, Kaido and telepathy are probably some of the best two skills at group combat, and that's true and all. But it's just like I don't know, they're so horrible at bashing that I can't like switch to monk personally and be like, all right, I'm gonna stay in this for a few days because I have I do the fracture all the time and like it literally takes me as a monk longer than an hour to bash my 6 fracture runs, whereas it takes like Templar like 47 minutes, something like that. And that sucks because you're trying to get it all done in one bronze keystone, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's like really the crappy PVE for Monk was one of the reasons I decided to switch. And also I decided that like since there's this sentiment throughout the game, and we've talked about this before, that like nobody wants to offend the other side by taking action against the other. I kind of encountered that again recently with the roleplay that's been going on with the Mathis and the Templar and stuff. And I was like, hey, we
Mm-hmm.
should do something about this. And they're like, oh, we don't have enough combatants, so we can't like try and strike back as a guild or whatever. But then they were like, if you want to go and like collect these bounties yourself, you can. So I was like, I'll just forget monk and I'll learn Sisson and I'll try to learn how to use it and start trying to stir something up. That's why I switched. So.
There's a nice wormhole that leads straight into the fracture that
I
goes to the
know.
car that
I've
that
used it to go into the fracture every time. I have the
yes,
wormhole stick on my artifact.
the way to get around the artifact that announces when people enter.
Yep. Oh,
Um,
oh,
cancel it.
well, it's.
Oh man.
I find it wild that
Um,
it still exists because when I stopped playing for 9 or 10 months before that, it was right there, and when I got back, it was still there. So I think it's because both sides use it.
yeah. Um, two things that to go back a little bit, and yeah, and I do want to talk about the hammer change. I mean, I do
Yes.
have to agree that with that the fact that being able to delete someone on entrance was a problem. Like being able to fully charge your blade and basically insta delete someone with a full blade charge, that was definitely a problem. I finding a balance, yes, that's something that we can do,
Yeah.
but being
Except.
able to get two Templars at full blade charge and just just obliterate one person immediately was and this is someone, and if it had been stayed the same, I would be benefiting it now as Revenant, and I'm fine with the fact that that can't happen anymore.
Yeah, but like I've said before about this, it's like, was it really a good solution to just like remove blade charge as a mechanic from lessers altogether as a response to like that one thing? Because it can actually be used for other skills other than Crescent. Like,
Oh
so,
yeah, and
like,
we do
yeah,
actually. It gets used. The issue is that it's the speed of two-handers, and two-handers need to be addressed separately, I think, from just a generic blade charge not being used, because we use stun off and on
hmm
for impale and things of that nature, because
right.
you can
From
um
Vorpal, yeah, you can
yeah,
Vorpal stun into Impale in one command. Yeah, that's basically
yeah,
what I do now with my two hander. I don't even have Crescent anymore in my script for lessers. I don't even use it
yeah,
anymore. I just
yeah,
hope and pray
exactly.
I get to 140 blade charge ever to be able to use an Impale.
So
Basically,
that I think honestly, I think the question is possibly not necessarily that blade charge was removed. I think it's a question and a tackle of how do we address two-handers in a way that makes them
Yes.
enjoyable to use,
Yes,
but
because
doesn't make them overpowered.
and I get people that are like, well, you still have blade charge, but you're talking about like using afflictions with two weapons, blade charge, which is entirely different. You can still Vorpal in a lesser fight because you're attacking faster, so you're getting blade charge faster. But like with two-handed weapon, like why is it? I don't know. I just don't like the idea that like it's like, well, you just shouldn't be able to use it at all with two-handed weapons.
So
Like
the counter argument I will have is that not every path that a class has is intended to be viable in group combat.
But then where is two-handed large blade? Like where is the large blaze weapon class useful at all then? Like what is
Which is why I said that it could be, that's the question that we have.
yeah.
How can we make two-handed viable? And looking at it as just a blade charge issue is missing the bigger problem. So it's not necessarily a blade charge issue, it's what do we need to look at with two-hand to make it something that can be viably used, be it 1v1 or otherwise. Um,
Yeah.
the
But the
it,
problem we've had, and it's going to be less of a problem now, admittedly, because you all also have Remnant. But the historical problem that the Templar class has had is that any kind of buff to it has been like just shouted down immediately. Like that's which maybe it won't be now that it will affect both sides. But it's like it's just bizarre, man. Like to see this class get like completely nerfed year after year after year after year. Like it's just really bizarre. Like it makes it to where like I really only enjoy the class for bashing. Like I don't know.
I
That's
mean
my opinion.
it's still with one-handed weapons it's still very viable for 1v1.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree.
and even groups. And in fact, I saw a log recently of um, Shrine Shrine using Rupture to kill a lean in a group between having Benedicto as a monk and him using maces
Mm-hmm.
to completely just floor somebody with quick breaks and stacking bruises. So it um, it definitely it's I wouldn't say it's a broken class and it's been nerfed into the ground. I would say that two-handed at one point was at an incredibly powerful place because I still remember the days of Basculos and his gigantic hammer and just smashing through people. It was brought down so that it wasn't overpowered, and now it's attempting to find a good balance. I don't want to go back and read previous class league reports, not that they're already deleted, but I hesitate to even use the word buff, which is why I prefer to use the word rework, because we might need to consider thinking of two-hand in a different way entirely to its approach.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
and I'll
it's
agree with that.
well, it's
That it's left a
also
chasm.
it's also kind of outside the scope, well, at least for me personally, to be like, okay, I think this is what two-handed should be in PvP because, like, no matter what I come up with or say, somebody's going to be like, you're just trying to be overpowered. So I mean, I think that that's something that should come, from the people upstairs, personally. Um,
No,
but they also may not have time to do that in general, so it's a
yeah.
hard thing.
Um, the I just will say the last thing I'll say about it before we talk about the hammer a little bit is that I do hopefully um, hopefully we can work together, most of us, because I can say with the best class leads and the best changes are when we do come together and work together. We look at things, we test things, we look at how they can work, what they do, what they don't do, what we would like them to do, what we think they should do, and build a comprehensive image of where it's currently at, what we see as the issue, and what we would like to see it doing in the future, and why we think that is a viable solution for this particular ability or instance of routing.
Yeah. I think
And
another. I wanted to say one more thing about Templar because this is something that other people have complained about too, and I'm sure it's on both sides. Is the fact that like it's really annoying that only one person can have conviction on someone in a group fight. Like it basically dissuades any more than one person playing Templar in a lot of cases, especially if you both want to go like affliction route.
I mean, that's a lot of people. We feel the same way with
Right.
Archivist. You can only have one mutagen, but that's also to help limit, because otherwise, if you could have mutagen amongst multiple people, you could basically just unravel almost instantly if you had more than one. So I get why the gates are there, and it requires some different tracking. And if it is discouraging people because they can't be the one to get the kill, well, that's a different conversation.
Well, it's also kind of a weakness of Sunder in general. Like the way it's built currently, it's like a lot of people type ret and it does it, but it like it requires you have conviction. Like it's built into the thing, so basically it's just like a Sunder thing, really. But I don't know. It's weird. Templar's weird. It is what it
Yeah,
is. I've come to peace with it that it's never going to be what I want it to be because you know whatever. So, but that's a good reason though that like I really enjoy the multi-class system. I can play other classes if I want to, which I do. So
yeah.
I've enjoyed playing Shapeshifter a lot recently. If people haven't noticed, like I've actually had a lot of fun learning how to do limb stuff in Sunder and writing my own shapeshifter stuff and trying it out at Lessers and training room and stuff. I'm probably going to have to do the same thing for Sissa now, although there seems to be a lot more people that'll just give me their scripts for that, even though I don't really necessarily want to do that. But yeah. Anyway, let's get to the next report. I don't want to get off on a tangent here.
No worries. So the hammer tattoo.
Okay.
This is going to be interesting because it's going to basically create for me it's going to be an interesting meta because you now have this and let me pull up the report too, which is 307. The buff to it and taking up a tattoo slot and the fact that it gets faster by 0.5 seconds, it creates a interesting question for you. Are you going to consider using hammer more often for breaking shield depending upon your class?
Right.
It's let's see. 1 second here.
No problem.
I just want to read the actual class lead one more time before I continue,
No worries.
because I have it in my head how it's supposed to work, but I don't want to misspeak. Okay. Okay.
I was gonna say here's a random fact while you get ready. I was going to choose between switching to Sisson or Luminary, by the way.
Luminary's tank here.
Well, the cool thing about both choices was that I bought an artifact shield for the fact that I have Wayfarer, so and you can use an artifact shield for both classes, so that was a big reason why I was picking between those two. Anyway, onto the report.
So yeah, I mean, every time the fact that it gets faster each time you use it to break shield, it's going to be an interesting thing depending upon how someone's using shield and where they currently are at. will it? I don't think it'll take over as a default for over like Ray Slash or Fork or Leaf Storm or anything of that nature. But being able to use it at the right time to start to pull down that EQ time, and so that way, if you've got them to a point that you hit with hammer, they shield, you hit it with again, now it's faster, and you kind of get this back and forth start going. It definitely can quickly erode any kind of momentum blocking that might be attempting to go on. If you do attempt to start this cycle at the wrong time, yeah, it can be pretty easy for somebody just to walk out. But it's going to be interesting to see how it's going to be actually implemented. And rather how people are going to implement it into their routing and when they're going to make the logic decision to use hammer versus their class's shield breaking. For me, I know I will probably consider, if I'm like in Seomancer, I might consider actually using hammer if I don't have any shadow prices for Hue. I wouldn't say not so much with Archivist because of After Images, and probably not with Revenant either because of Ray Slash or
So I have a
Deceive.
question for you
Yeah.
about this topic, like hammer and the solution that we got is. Do you think it's a more elegant solution, the solution they chose, rather than the idea of maybe thinking about giving more classes a way to break shield tattoo with only slowing down their offense instead of halting it entirely? Like, for example, the monks, they have scythe kick, and then they just kick you and still punch you in one balance, whereas like a lot of classes have to like stop what they're doing and like raise your shield and then you put it up again and so on and so forth.
So quite a few classes actually can still continue to punish you for raising shield. You have Deceive, you have Ray Slash, you have
Right.
Flay, which still delivers a venom. Like I said, you can break it with Scythe. With Archivist, Fork, if they're continuing to have patterns, they start a loop now, so that way Fork is now passively breaking their shield. You have Soul Wraith with Carnifex and whatever the Warden version of that is, that automatically breaks shield. And then you can reapply it on your next balance. And then even as they clarified in the report that when Hound strips shield, it doesn't count against its number of attacks. Yeah, I would honestly say that Thunder for Praenamin is probably one of the few that really is in a weird spot, because since you're primarily using your Scythe and your Double Whispers, having to switch over to something that is, switching over to Sunder to break that shield is interesting. I think I think that this is going to be an interesting addition because it's one, now they're not having to balance it around any one class. It's a general skill that everyone can have access to at the cost of a tattoo slot. So this way, it's much easier to adjust and change it and apply a overarching philosophy onto it rather than attempting to have to go into each and every individual class and possibly see how their specific way of breaking shield is working within that particular class.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that's where I'm at with it.
Gotcha. Can everybody in chat hear us, or is it just that person that can't hear audio?
Yep. Anybody else having trouble hearing me? Oh.
I can hear you. Okay. They can hear.
Okay.
Got it. Just making sure.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, I don't think this was a bad class laid round. I will always I will still, of course, express my sadness for only getting one report per person, but I
Right.
know that was already addressed in the town hall. So hopefully in the coming future, we'll be able to see more reports per person, so that way we can diversify what we're impacting here. Because I like class leads to, definitely have a scope of what we're doing and must being very particular about what we're choosing to address and not address. But at the same time, I know so many people had so many different ideas that they would like to look at beyond just balance changes, but also possibly even quality of life changes
Right.
that were considered secondary to something more pressing. And when you only have one report to pick from, you're always going to go with your highest priority.
Yeah, that's like I remember Valerie was real big about her class lead she reported this time, and it was about bashing damage for Sentinels, which
Mhm.
I don't play Sentinels, but like looking at what stats they get on their Durav, it's and how hard they hit and like what their DPS is and bashing, it was really sad to watch, to be
No, their
honest with
DPS
you.
has been
Like
Garbo forever.
yeah, like it feels like I think somebody told me a while back that they had got nerfed a long time ago, and it sounds like to me that like if that's the case, they probably got over nerfed back then, and it's just gotten worse over time. But because honestly, like I was to the point where like I was talking to Isia one time, and I was like, you keep dying, and you're trying to bash the 200. You've been trying to bash the 200 for like 2 years now that I've known you, and you're real close, but you're just having a hell of a time. It's like maybe you should think about just picking up Wayfarer. Like I really told her that I was like, Wayfarer is really good and solves a lot of your problems, but a lot of people don't, shouldn't have to necessarily switch their class to be good at bashing, you know. But it is what it is.
Yeah, it's so I understand that, there's always going to be classes that are going to be better at bashing, and I am 100% fine against there being a quote unquote perfect balance, because one, it's unattainable, and two, having diversity of classes is what makes them interesting.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree with that.
Is So while I can say that as long as we're aiming for at least the minimum baseline to kind of with a variance, a percentile variance, if we're getting into that, that's fine.
Hmm.
Um, but if you're into min-maxing, then I would say that having to make a decision around that min-maxing is, you know, is kind of part of min-maxing.
Yeah, I will say also because after reading repeatedly, like on the bashing numbers thread back in the day of people talking about all the bashing numbers, I was like, when I switched to Sisson recently, I was like, oh man, it's probably going to be much slower, but it can't be as slow as Monk was. And then, I had Sryan make me a whip that was set up to be just like my two handed weapon was normally. Like after augments, I'm looking at being at like 130, 131 speed, and then like 180 damage or whatever with the rune
Hmm.
and everything. And with that and all the stuff. And by the way, I don't know if people know this. I find it flavorfully weird, but it does work. A whip is considered to be a small blade and is type cutting. So rune of cutting works if you attach it to a whip. By the way, um, so all that my DPS is about 840 with the garrote, and that's with 19 strength. That's not even strength
Hmm.
capped. So like if I was strength capped, I'd probably be pretty close to Templar DPS. I'd probably be at like 900. But I also don't have 2,500 credits in me to max my strength out. So
No, I did some tests with Fezzik back in the day when I first grabbed Sisson, and Sisson is definitely a very good glass cannon when it comes to um, bashing DPS.
yeah,
Like, you can definitely get very high numbers, but you also have very, very little in terms of audit resists.
yeah, that's another thing. Funny enough, with the artifact shield and the scale mail and everything, my audit is actually a little higher than it is as a Templar.
No, that's because Templar also has a terrible audit.
Yeah, and exactly, and they don't get to use shields. But
I mean,
I
you
just found you
can. It's just
can, but good luck with that. Good luck with taking like 30-40% damage decrease or whatever. But yeah, like it's actually been really fun to bash. I did my fracture runs, and Anecdotally here, it was 9 minutes slower to get them all done than it was in Templar as a citizen, which is a little slower than Wayfarer, but it's like between like Wayfarer is probably between Sisson and Templar in speed, and then it's still way faster than Monk was too. So, but yeah,
I do it in Archivist, or if I'm really in a run, I just turn on Spectre and go down and see Omancer.
yeah, I've just been trying to play the class the last couple days and see how everything works with it. I've enjoyed it, but
Yeah.
let's get on to the next report. Whatever we want to talk about.
I mean, that's I
Are
would say I
those
think
those are kind of the biggest ones to you?
um I would say those are the ones I mostly want to talk about. Yeah. And to yeah, I would say those are really the biggest ones. I think we're going to. I'm happy that we added a few more things with for stags because that's
Yeah,
nice.
yeah, for sure.
And I think I am happy with most of the approvals. There's a couple of at least mine and I have get a little grumbly, but that's just in general. But I understand their reasoning behind it.
Right.
So yeah, I can't say I'm disappointed with this round at all.
Okay. Yeah, I think it was like obviously we didn't get it on time, and now we know kind of why. So, but I will say it was even though that was the case, it still felt like a quick little round, like 2 little announcement posts. We at least got a little bit of stuff. I think it'll be interesting to see how they do the next ones. Given the staff changes, maybe it'll
Yep.
turn out a lot better.
Yeah. We shall see. We shall see.
Okay. So let's see here. What was our next topics? Let me pull it up in our Discord. I should have had it already pulled up, but whatever. So do you want to finally talk about your Code Gates topic that we pushed back for 3 weeks?
Oh, goodness. Okay. So, and this actually ties a little bit back into what we were talking about a little bit with Sunder and such like that. And I know a couple people have brought this up, both listening to some new players and stuff like that, is the coding knowledge you have to have and where it's and how it's changed, and either for better or for worse, or for entry into the game and into combat and other things of that nature. And this is definitely going to be something that I would want feedback with chat from as well. But I was really happy when they introduced first aid and just in-game curing in general.
Agree.
The initial variation of first aid I wasn't quite as happy with
Agree.
its delay. But I was extremely happy when they put in-game curing as basically it seemed like as a IRE-wide policy, because it was while it was sometimes funny to be able to just watch someone immediately fall over because you paralyze them and smack them with Loki a few times. At the same time, on the flip side of that, being the person who had that happen to you because you didn't understand how to code triggers yet, you didn't
Yeah.
understand the client or anything, is extremely demoralizing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, that said, on the flip side, there's still, especially with where 1v1 has headed and even group combat is headed, and the amount of automation that is in combat these days, there can definitely feel like there's a very, very high bar into engaging in any form of combat if you don't either already have something set up to use as an example. And then even if you do have an example of attempting to start to branch out into your own thing, to be able to do any kind of implementation of that you feel is viable for what you're attempting to do.
Yes.
So
First aid, I think first aid has been great overall, like despite its shortcomings and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. For me, it's kind of one of those hard things to really differentiate because I don't think we can completely pull away from coding, honestly, because that's just the name of
Right.
this is just how clients work, and I wouldn't want to.
Right.
But and again, and I'm asking this to a point with chat too, what are your thoughts in with getting new players and getting people involved in a way that really starts to show them either how to code or examples of code so they can maybe start getting into it? And do you think, that the bar for entry level PK right now and really getting into it is too high at the right spot, too low? Where do we think we are on that?
Too high. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So people that are watching this on YouTube later, Jezreth said too high. Rohan said, I think that trying to learn the game and also learning to code at the same time is too much. Eliadon says this is a hard problem. The bar for entry level PK is very nice at the moment. We have Sunder as a public system for Spirit, and Sunder is perfectly viable for almost all entry level PK. Sarge says entry level PK is specifically based around the availability of systems. I think it's a touch high if I'm being honest. Rowan says maybe a stopgap would be some default stuff with the server side aliases. Stomping says not 1v1. Jezreth says Sunder is not really 1v1 viable. 1v1 is not entry level PK. So on and so forth. So it's like,
Yeah. And that there's not a viable mirror for Sunder right now, really.
yeah,
Because again, for Spirit, there is some 1v1 stuff in there, but
right. It's kind
if
of
you go
rudimentary.
if you look at the Sunder Seomancer routing, it is okay. I will say I haven't looked at the most recent build of Sunder because I branched out a little while ago and have been building out from what is it, 5.05, and kind of been doing my upgrades. I downloaded it and haven't really looked at it, so I will definitely look at it and see where we're at with support with that. So so I won't say that it isn't there since I can't speak to that 100%. So yeah, okay. So it
I think
for
one
go ahead.
sec. I
Yeah, go
just
ahead.
want to say, like, especially while you gather your thoughts there, I want to say that as somebody I would consider myself kind of mid tier. Like, obviously, I'm not a newbie, but I'm also not like Sidon or Physics. Um, so in saying that, I think that what one thing is that Sunder could do better on all sides, no matter what, is that have some kind of documentation somewhere other than the little built-in help alias that's very basic. As in, like, it would be nice to know what the names of all these variables are that are important in the lim system without having to go like look through every single route and find all the ones you need and stuff like that. Like, so having some kind of user documentation for Sunder would be good. But I also know that Sunder is also like, it's a passion project. It's not like it's a corporate piece of software, But
Right.
um,
Yeah, and that I think is going to be always the difficult thing. And I think that kind of is the crux of it for a lot of people too, and it is for me, is that systems, coding, their viability, and even their distribution all comes down to us. And I know that's been an endless discussion in IRE games in general. Is it a good or bad thing for the community to have a system that is at least basic there for basic PK or basic protection, um, pretty well maintained and freely distributed? Where are our thoughts? with having different systems and how they're distributed and stuff like that. But since it's people's systems, they can do what they want, and that's completely their choice because it is their code and their system. And I would say that, and I do have this on my radar as something to do, is kind of pulling back up as it's been started a few times, and making sure that we attempt as a community to maybe continue to give like examples or basic guidance on how to code with Lua, or continue to keep an open channel with on forum topics and stuff, because to make sure that we're continuing to give more avenues to teach people with to teach people how to use Lua or how to use any kind of any kind of coding, be it Nexus or otherwise, because I do know there are people who do run Nexus and JVS. So yeah, it's for me, and I know this is going to definitely more of a definitely chat involved with this discussion.
Right.
But the reason I did want to bring it up really is because I do think, especially as we're getting more people coming in, and as we've talked about, hopefully getting more people coming in, that the code gates of being able to actually meaningfully set up something that people can use is, and having it in a way that's easily accessible and easily, or even having things to where if they feel like they can engage more freely is going to be something that we have when we're considering how are we going to maintain the people that we're bringing in.
Yeah.
So and no, I will agree with that, is that the more people we have functional is definitely good, because I I've played long enough. I remember the day when you could know, you knew the people who PK'd. You could name them on your fingers.
Right. Yeah.
And you knew that if you ever fought any of them, or if they decided they were going to kill you, it was just, okay, I die. I just curl up and die. This is how it's going to go. And unfortunately, because mechanical PK, I shouldn't say unfortunately, but because mechanical PK can be an answer to conflict, sometimes it can definitely impact the way people will respond in a given situation if they know that, at least to them, that they know that they don't have a recourse to interact in that particular mechanical way to a given situation. So the more people who at least feel that they have at least a baseline to feel that they can at least do something rather than absolutely nothing, could hopefully, especially as we get more reasons to engage in conflict, try to encourage more people to say, I can at least say this, or I can at least attempt to do this, because even if I think I'm going to die because, I'm fighting somebody who's really good at PK, I at least know I can do more than just flail or curl up in a ball and just die immediately.
Right. Yeah, I think it's important to remember in regards to PvP. And again, this is something coming from someone that's kind of mid tier, but I've also been around a long time on not only Iron Realms games but like other PvP mods. It's really good to remember that, like, when you're thinking about like what you're doing with your system, don't just think about the offense. Like, you need to think about your means for escaping, your means for chasing, that sort of thing. And a lot of people, I think, get caught up on, you can do a lot of work on that sort of thing, and it's not overly hard to even program for someone that's newer. Don't get caught up on how crazy the curing or the offense is. There's a lot to it more than just that. But that's, I
Oh,
don't know.
yeah. Yeah, it's definitely There's so much that goes into a system, and I do want to take a second and say that I give my kudos and thanks and praise to every single person who takes the time to code systems and maintain those systems, be it for the entire public or even for a set group of people. Because I understand that it is passion projects and it is so much work to continue to maintain those in a viable way.
Right.
So for those who do that, thank you, because you are actively contributing to the game in that way.
Yep.
So
And
go ahead.
on screen right now, I have the fishing going, which when I downloaded this newest version of Sunder after I started playing again, the fishing system is completely different than it was on the old version of Sunder I had like a year and a half ago. So that's anecdotal evidence that people are trying to improve everything with Sunder and not just the routes and stuff, the routes.
Right. Yeah, and quality of life stuff is always good. So yeah, everyone who contributes to these, I think it's good. I know that, and I've kind of been in the like the tenuous stages of considering this, of just possibly starting giving like tours of Mudlet and starting with some very basic Lua tutorials,
Mm-hmm.
especially as we get more people. Just because I understand that if you've never coded in Lua or you've never coded at all, understanding, what's a variable, what's the difference between a global variable and a local variable, how to use a trigger, what's the difference between a
Yeah,
substring and Perl regex and exact match and start of line. What is matches 1, matches 2, matches 3? What does these mean? What's a capture group?
yeah.
Um,
There's a lot because like even if you've been messing with it like I have for years, there's still stuff you learn like all the time about it. Like here's an example. Like I've been messing around with making my own stuff in Sunder for a couple years now, and like it wasn't only until just recently when I looked at one of the routes in Sunder that shows or routes that shows the string find thing, string dot find. It was in the shapeshifter one. I think it was string dot find mangled comma arm or whatever. Like I'd never even
in the
seen that
physical
function,
effects.
but yeah, like I thought because up until then I was like I thought you had to just like go and see inside the afflictions of like do they have a mangled arm or not, like I didn't even think
Well,
that there was a string find for that, which was
well, it
cool.
does, but though that's the interesting thing. So what it does is it looks at the. Oh, you cut out.
Oh, me? I'm sorry. I
Oh
was
no, I'm
done.
sorry. I was okay. Um, Interestingly, to explain basically how that works is it does actually look at the affliction table of what they currently have. And what it does is a string dot find amongst those afflictions, which is going to be looking for any affliction that has the underscore mangled as an affliction, and use that as seeing if that variable is set to what it needs to be.
Yeah.
So it's doing a in pairs do.
Yeah.
So it's pulling the table, doing the string dot find specifically within that table, to be able to find a result to tell you what if you can use that logic. Pairs and I-pairs, I am not great at them.
Right.
I'm
Same. I was gonna
still
say that.
getting the iterations and I understand the basis of how they work and what they're supposed to do, but um, I wish I was better at them, but I don't use uh,
Right.
I don't use it enough at the moment to feel comfortable putting it in everywhere.
I
But
I made a really wacky thing for the first time recently when I still had Monk that I wanted to try out forever and I did not know how to do it. And then I sat down and figured out how to do it. So like my idea was like, okay, so everybody like fighting a monk and fighting shapeshifter and limb classes in general is like about a lot of it's about how you parry, right? So
mhm.
it's like I was like, what if I design a thing for monk where every single combo I hit a random limb so that it's unpredictable? And now that being said, I did it and like it sucks obviously, but like my point is like I had to figure out how to make a table and then randomly pick from the table using the math random. And that was very interesting. I had to go look up Lua commands and not just Mudlet stuff. So
Mhm.
and to me that was like really fun and fascinating to figure out. Even though it ended up sucking, it was like it was still kind of cool. It was like, hey, I did this thing that I've never done before and it worked. And I think that's a lot of what's really good about Code Gate stuff. Is what I guess I'm trying to say. Is like you can have those eureka moments that are very cool. You know.
Yeah. No, and um, I can definitely, yeah, take a look at Taz's guides. So yeah, those can definitely hope maybe even be bumped if they're not pinned or something like that. And to go back to a couple of the comments, yes, I do 100% agree that surviving is where you need to start. Like if you focus on keeping yourself alive and build your offense out of that foundation of
Yep.
not dying.
Yep.
Because a not dying in some ways is almost a victory in and of itself, because while you maybe can't kill them yet, they can't kill you.
Yeah.
And you can always keep improving that cannot kill them yet portion of it.
Yeah.
As long as you know how to survive.
Yeah. And on the topic of survival, I actually really like classes and abilities of different classes that are focused around surviving and escaping. I think that's really fascinating. And that's why I kind of like really despise the idea of having such easy artifact ways to get away, because to me it kind of like for example, it's like, you know, you have wings and translocator like we've talked about in that vein, but it's like, you know, Sisson have all these really cool skills to get away with. To me, it just feels like it just kind of devalues that a little bit, because they're just that's like a whole part of their kit is like being able to, you know, use wormholes, being able to evade, being able to follow people. You know, like I don't know, but yeah, like it's fascinating stuff. Like working on your defense is almost it may even be more important than your offense in the end. So
Just continuing to do that improvement on that around your survival and being able to survive. So yeah, 100%. So no, I will look at seeing if, you know, we can make sure those coding topics are available, and if I get anyone who asks after, you know, I'll look over them and make sure that we can maybe point them to it. And people can ask me, and I know it's been forever. Do any of the old Luacant clans, do those kind of die a slow death, or are any of those still around? Because I know there used to be some Lua clans.
mm.
Like I think, what was it, Kelsis Labs?
That sounds familiar.
I haven't seen anything about that. I mean, I know it still exists, but I don't know if anyone actually
Yeah.
is a part of it anymore.
I think the last time I was in clans like that, it was just specific around specific systems instead of just Lua. Personally,
Gotcha. But yeah, no, I think it's something. I think it's something that just, like I said, I like to occasionally bring attention to, just because it is something that still exists, and I know it can definitely be a challenge for those who are just getting into Atolia, or even just getting into MUDs in general. And you're looking at not only all this text, but then someone's like, yeah, let's look at this, you know, let's look at all this code, and I've never done coding in my life, and I don't even understand the very basics of coding, or
right?
even what trigger means in
Yeah,
terms of a system.
yeah. They don't even. Well, some people that are real new to it don't even know what a mud client is. So,
Yeah, exactly. So
and then we're trying to once they get in the game and they've been in the game a few days, we're like, "Hey, come to this lesser, bro," and they're like, "But I don't. I just know how to slash, you know, or garrot someone." I don't know, but you know, it's funny because like a lot of this stuff that we're all used to and have been doing forever, we take for granted how like complicated it is, even though it's not to us anymore.
yeah, no, I get it. Yeah, it's just one of those things, and I guess also to that point too, it's a what is it? Just went out of my head. It just speaks to the just the depth of the community, because of how close knit we are overall.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Let's see. I was gonna try to find something fun to show people, but I'll just do it some other time. I was gonna say, like, all this talking about systems reminded me that I still have somewhere. I have the code base for Oasis that Ashmer sent me years ago. I still have it just sitting. And it's like you open it in Notepad plus and like just one of the source files is like 1200 lines or 12,000 lines rather long.
Mm-hmm.
And it just sits there and I'm just thinking, man, I really wish there was a way to like update this and use this cuz I've used a bunch of systems and like over the years and like that was probably one of my favorite ones. But
it's an XML file, isn't it?
I think so, yes.
Then you can open it in an editor and
Yeah.
edit it. WordPad actually recognizes XML files even.
Yeah, Notepad++
And then
does too. I've done it
and
before. I've
then
looked
you
at
edit it, and then you do load from load mudlet file named or .xml or something of that nature to get it to actually load on, and then you set a system event.
Yeah,
But yeah,
it's well, it was cool because like one thing he did with that system that was interesting is he didn't use first aid with it. And I think it was because back then it was like the first iteration of first aid. Like where like you said where it was real slow and useless.
yeah, when I had that delay.
But he also like so all the self-curing in it would also need to be vastly updated because that's like back when the two different cure sets existed, like one for reanimation and one for herbalism.
Right. Well,
So
and it'd have to be updated for queuing and also updated for command limit and
yeah,
all
a bunch
sorts of
of
stuff.
stuff. Yeah. But
Yeah.
like just the way he did it and the way he programmed it and the way he laid out the UI, I just always liked that system. And I always am thinking, man, I should, if I actually get decent at this stuff someday, I should sit down and be like, I'm gonna bring back Oasis from the dead. But it's also fascinating. It's fascinating to me too to go back and look at his routes for Carnifex. To be like, now that we have Carnifex on my side, like, can I look at his routes and be like, hey, is there a better way to do something? Because I don't think Carnifex has probably changed quite a bit since then, but probably not a whole lot, I would imagine. Overall,
I'm not Carnifex, so I won't answer that.
like in the
I'm sure
past 5 years is what I'm talking about.
pretty sure it got a rework. Yeah,
Did it?
because the
Okay.
Hound's got a major rework.
Okay.
Yeah, it's at least gotten one major rework.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So
All right.
yeah, I remember Carnifex from those days, but yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to say about the CodeGate stuff?
No, not really. I mean, we can go on to the next topic from here. Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay, let's see what we got here. I think the last one will probably be our last topic before we get out of here. I think I'm gonna go hang out with my friends for my birthday again. I'm gonna go hang out at their house after this. So yeah, I won't be around to do the dailies at exactly Howling like I usually am. But yeah, I think one of the things we wanted to talk about, and we, obviously we've talked about this a little bit already in various places, is opinions on the town hall stuff from last night. Do you have? Would you like to start with that?
So, I would say that the questions are always going to be questions because there's going to be a lot of questions whenever there's a new producer.
Right.
I absolutely enjoyed the way that Actinus did approach answers. Yeah. It was very professional. It was very to the point. And I didn't feel it was any overpromises beyond what he could personally either account himself for or account the other admin for in terms of his direction. The direct communication was very, very, very refreshing. And I appreciated just appreciated how to the point he was. And as someone who communicates directly with a customer base in my occupation, he was definitely saying things in ways that I definitely I loved. So I was super excited with how the town hall went. And I'm very I know now that many of us are excited to see when we get, especially here in Shadow, when we get our hands on Luminary.
Hmm. I will also say about the town hall, and I did not expect him to literally get through every single person in the queue, and also for it to go 5 hours. I was, but like I said last night in Discord, like even though that was the case, I'm not mad at it. I thought it was awesome. Like yes, it was long, but like it also gave a reason for people to feel like they could step out of it when they wanted to. Like it's not like you had to be there for the whole thing. Um, they cut off the queue
Yeah,
eventually. Well, that I mean that's still I have never in the entire 20 years I've played these games off and on ever seen a Q&A or town hall or anything of that sort that has lasted that long and got through every single question. Like I found that fascinating and impressive.
yeah, no, I mean, I know as he said that he had, done some research and stuff as kind of an expectation. So like to drive home, as I said before, the professionalism. The
Yeah.
professionalism in what we got and how it was handled was extremely refreshing and exciting. And having worked with him in the past before, not directly, but as a player, um, I'm really excited to see his energy applied to Atolia.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. And I really hope we see, instead of like continuing on in a rather pedestrian manner like we have the last, couple years or whatever, I really hope that we immediately see something really special in the next few months between now and the new year. Like that's what I would like to see personally. And I
Mm-hmm.
think and I think that the town hall was a good indicator of that. And I hope we have another good town hall tomorrow night. Like I hope people that
Yeah.
didn't get to come, and or people that did get to come get to ask more questions because you know
Okay.
I think it'll be great.
Now, I think the town hall will be great, and I think we're going to see some different people, and I think we're going to see quite a bit happening quite a bit of movement in this quarter. I know it's going to be a bit. I I know, and I'm setting myself the expectation of, and hopefully more other people are doing so, that it's going to take him time to get the reins of everything,
Hmm.
because coming into everything that was happening in the pools without, especially from a different game, while he does have the IRE background, he, wasn't aware of what's happening in Atolia, where its direction is, what's done, what isn't done, what's being built, what events are being planned, what their end goals are. The list goes on. So I know it's going to take him time to just really wrap his hands around everything at the moment and start building a direction. Um, because honestly, with where communication was in general, and the complete breakdown of communication that was happening, it's going to take a rebuild of the relationship between us, the admin, our expectations, their expectations,
Right.
and what we hope to see moving forward.
Yeah. It just feels like for a long time, and again, I can't speak for everyone, but it feels like their ceiling on what they expected to do for the game felt like our floor, you know? Like that's the way I look at it. It's like the bare minimum was what we were getting, even though like it felt like maybe that they thought they were, I don't know. I don't even know what some of the people were thinking, but regardless, it's over now, and we are all, and I know this from watching the Discord last night and everything. We are all, from Solani to player. We are all excited about what's coming up, and I think that's awesome. I think it's great to have both sides of that wall, of that curtain, being excited for the future.
Yeah, I do too. And I'm really, yeah, I'm waiting to see what's going to happen, and I'm in anticipation of what's going to be happening coming soon. Um, and whatever whatever is the first big project that emerges from this, I'm going to be keeping my eyes out to see what happens with that. So
Rebuilding like the Detroit Lions. Yeah, I mean, I'm
not
a big football guy, but even I know what that means. So.
Oh, the Detroit Lions. Goodness.
I'll
Yes.
never forget when I was a kid growing up and they had that one year where they went 0-16 and like literally didn't even air their last games or whatever. Oh, look, chat. My bucket is full. I didn't even anticipate that. Let's go turn it in. Let's go to the goal eyes and turn in my bucket, and you can all tell me how pointless fishing is when I get 60,000 gold here. Oh, I need to go to the right guy. I need to get a hob. All right. Also, while I'm doing this, I will say if anybody's in chat still, I know we're winding down here and there's less people in chat than there was. If anybody's in chat that has not entered the giveaway for the credits and wants to, go ahead and do that. It's exclamation ticket space and then the number 1. Also, thank you on the congratulations for the DMV job. I in regards to that, I have to wait until next Saturday, like a week from now, to go get my fingerprints and stuff taken for this government job. I have to go somewhere in person and get all the background check stuff done. And then like basically it may be like about, my best friend was telling me because he works in the state, it may be another 6 weeks before I see any like pay from this job. So I'm probably still going to keep door dashing between now and then, like when I start. So, but things are looking up. I figure by the end of the year I'll be okay financially again, and I'm looking forward in relation to Iron Realms and Anatolia and to being able to have my membership going again.
Definitely. No, and congratulations from me too. And background checks and fingerprints do take a while, but hey, I mean, a job, you got a government DMV job, so that'll be nice, consistent.
Yep. I was telling my best friends at lunch today, it's kind of morbid that oh shit, I didn't mean to kill that rabid dog with my whip. Ah, fuck it, I might as well kill both of them. Anyway, so you know, doing the state job, I get life insurance as well as medical insurance and retirement. I get it all, right? But I was telling them it's kind of morbid that like I'm really more concerned about the life insurance at this point because of, you know, my general health, you know, than I am retirement. So, and the life insurance doesn't cost anything, so that's something. All right.
It's always something.
All right. So 2 more people entered. I'm gonna go ahead and end the poll or end the giveaway in a second. If anybody else wants to get in. Final tally on gold for 400 fish for people who missed it was 55,000 gold just now. I had less ocean sunfish than usual, I guess. DD says good luck. Thank you, DD. All right, let's see here. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end it. We'll see what happens. I'm going to draw a winner. Here we go. Ah, the winner is Sarge, who I do not know their character name in Anatolia. You can either DM it to me or say it in chat. You can DM me on Discord. You can Twitch whisper this account, the weekly milestone, or you could say it in chat. Whatever you want to do. Just let me know what you intend to do. Okay, Ardent. All right, cool. There you go, man.
He is doing crazy stuff in the Bama Essence contest that I'm running in Spine's Reach right now.
That's cool. I heard about that because I know it had something to do with my guild's roleplay or whatever too, a little bit.
I don't know about that. I mean,
yeah, you've been gone the last
contest.
Well,
if it did, then that was not at all.
There's a thing. It's pretty well known. There's a thing where like Ben Mathis is trying to put a statue in our guild hall, and that's like what we're dealing with recently. And the idea was like, if Mathis gets more essence, then Ome can't destroy it or something like that. Is what I was told. So I don't know.
That was That's not tied to the contest. That's something different.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
This is literally just give him essence,
right?
And I'll pay you credits. But
I've been giving Ethne essence because she blesses me. But I really wish my god that I follow was active and would bless me. Therefore, I would really like to give essence to the god that I follow, but it is what it is. Maybe someday Demario will come back with his peg leg and his warhammer.
until then, just give essence to everybody. I actually used to do
Maybe.
that before Bama came back, and I joined his congregation and stuff. Was I had a set schedule that I would give essence to, and or a set number as I would rotate through our advisory. And so I would go and do either, it'd be like 2-ish weeks to 2.5 to 4 million essence per advisory member, and then switch to the next one.
Yeah, when I was doing some of my guild progression, one of the tasks is to offer like millions of essence to every spirit divine. So I'm no stranger to doing it. It's just like I have a preference for like offering to whatever god I'm following, but if I can't, then it is what it is.
Yeah, that's fair. Yep.
But
As long as it's a link shrine.
yeah. We have all of our gods have linked shrines in the different alcoves in the Temple of Gods, so it's real easy to go
That's
to it.
true. Those undestroyable shrines.
Yes, good times. Yeah, there's tons more stuff we could talk about, but I'd like to, we'll save that for next week when we have
Yep.
yourself back, me, and then maybe some other people with us, and we'll have a whole new set of topics. And I'm going to log off after this, and I'm gonna go have a nice birthday evening. And thanks for everybody that wished me well in that. Thanks for everybody that came today. Yeah, I hope we all have a good week until next time. Hopefully we see some awesome stuff that we can talk about next week, throughout the week.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody who showed up. And y'all have a great weekend and have fun.
Yep.
Eric's.
Yep. See y'all later. Bye-bye.
Bye.